the Photo Diaries podcast. I'm your host, Grace Costa, a commercial photographer of over 2 decades, a photo-based artist, and a photography mentor. This podcast opens up a secret diary about the world of the photography industry. We'll bring you inspiring interviews with industry professionals, as well as stories and tips to help you propel through your photography journey, whether you're just starting out or a seasoned pro. Thanks for joining me today. Now let's open the latest diary. Hi friends, welcome back to the podcast. Today we've got a special guest with us. I'm chatting with Mel Daniels, and Mel is a content marketing strategist, speaker, podcast host, and author. Mel's purpose is to teach and empower women who want more from their business on how to use content in a more powerful way. She gives them the confidence they need to become more visible, seen as the expert that they are, and inspired to take their business to the next level. Today, Mel and I are going to talk all things content marketing and content strategy. So let's welcome Mel. All right. Hi, Mel. Welcome to the Photo Diaries podcast. I'm excited because I love talking about marketing and you love talking about business and marketing. So today, together, we're going to nerd out completely.
Match made in heaven, Grace.
I love it. So please explain to us, first of all, what the term content marketing means.
Okay. I think that so many different people have a different view of what content is and what content marketing is. So this is a great question to start off with. I've done a little bit of research on this, Grace, in preparation for today's episode. And I'm going to give you a couple of definitions that I have found online, and I'm going to tell you why I don't particularly love them. So the first one comes from the Oxford Dictionary, and this is, I kind of feel like I need to read this in a bit of a posh voice or something, Grace, but they say it's a type of marketing that involves the creation and sharing of online material, such as videos, blogs, social media posts, which is true. But they say that it does not explicitly promote a brand, but is intended to stimulate interest in products and services. I think that we've actually moved away from this now, Grace, and we're far more focused on using content as a way to actually promote who we are and what we do. So don't necessarily agree with the Oxford Dictionary definition of it. A step up from that is the Content Marketing Institute, and they say that it's a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content, tick, 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 to attract and retain a clearly defined audience. Love that. And ultimately to drive profitable customer action. 100%. That's what we need to do. We're always focused on what do we want our ideal client, the person who's consuming this piece of content, to do as a result of this. Now, I take a far more holistic view of content marketing. And I really see content marketing as being a journey. And it's the journey that you take your ideal client on from not knowing anything about you all the way through to becoming that raving, paying fan. And the key here, Grace, the key here is the word journey, because it's not about putting out entertaining videos that get lots of likes and get the reach. It's not about constantly selling. It's about how you connect human to human with another person and how you help them or communicate with them who you are, what your values are, what you do, what you stand for, what you don't stand for. So I don't think that content marketing is a thing that you do. It is not about posting on socials. It's really looking at that holistic view of connecting with someone, building a relationship, and taking them on a journey.
Okay, that still sounds like a lot. So where do we even, okay, if we're starting from scratch to think about this content journey.
Yes.
What's our first step in the content type that we should create to start to engage somebody?
Yeah, okay. So there's so many nuances in that question, Grace, and I'm going to address the engagement piece first and foremost.
Yeah.
I feel as though, and I know this for a fact because I asked the question in my free Facebook group recently, what is the one thing that you want your content to do for you or do? And the answer was overwhelmingly engagement. And I thought to myself, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that people are really driven by the likes and the comments? And, it's human nature, right? We
Yeah.
desire to be loved. We desire to be part of something bigger. We desire to,
Community.
yep, exactly.
Yeah.
All of those things. So I can understand why. But the thing is, when we are just focused solely on engagement and that being our, main driver for all of the content that we create, we miss out on something really important. And it's that journey. So when we think about, well, instead of chasing the likes, instead of chasing the reach, the engagement, how do I actually connect with the right person in the right place and create content specifically for them? So going right back to the very start, the client journey is about connecting. It's about subscribing, so getting them to subscribe, hopefully to your email list, or perhaps you might have a podcast that they subscribe to, or your Facebook group that they become a member of, whatever it is that's your driver of your leads. Then we want to nurture them. So that's the third part of the client journey. How do we continue to build that relationship with them so that then they convert, so they actually purchase from us? And then the last phase is onboarding. And I know that you've done an absolute brilliant podcast episode on the client journey and the, what you do after the photo shoot, Grace. So
Ah, yes, I do.
perhaps you can link that episode in the show notes because it was a fantastic episode. So it's really about thinking about that journey. How can I connect? How can I subscribe? How can I nurture? How can I convert those four things? Because when we're focused more on the tactics rather than the strategy, so the client journey is the strategy, then we're really caught up in all the shoulds. I should be creating reels. I should be on Pinterest. I should be all these things. But when we take a step back and look at the holistic view of it and the strategic view of it, it becomes far more easier, I guess.
Okay, that makes sense now because I know a lot of photographers do say to me, I should be on social media more often. I should be posting on Pinterest. I should be blogging more. All these things are in that sort of that funk. And
Yes.
I guess to get out of that, we need to build the strategy that suits their customer base and their business, right? So that they funnel out all the shoulds and don't worry about all the periphery stuff and funnel in and focus on where their zone is going to be to put all those energy into.
Oh my goodness, you're speaking my language, Grace. 100%. Yes. Ditch the shoulds, get rid of the noise, and really focus on those things that you just mentioned, but also on your strengths. It is so important to focus on your strengths, and we become far more powerful, purposeful, and strategic if we understand how we like to create content and how we can bring that to what we do. I mean, like, I'm sure that everyone's done something in their life that kind of it felt wrong, or it just felt misaligned, or it just didn't, flow as well as it could. And that's probably because they weren't utilizing their strengths in that moment. So I really encourage people to think about their strengths, and we can talk about that too if you want.
So I guess if you're a photographer and you are a really good writer, you should put your energy into your blog and make that part of your strategy. And then would you say, Mel, find ways to drive your traffic and start the funnel to the end point, which is the blog, and then the end point is not the blog. The blog is part of the funnel. And then within that blog, there's a strategy to convert them into a client. Am I on the right track?
100%. So I really encourage everyone, and particularly creatives and photographers, to start with a core piece of content. So that is a blog, a podcast, or a video. You have this podcast. I have a podcast. Some people write blogs. Some people prefer to do videos. I'm working with someone at the moment who identifies as a free spirit, and we can talk about the content creator archetypes in a second, Grace, but she identifies as someone who is more intuitive and likes to create when she's in the flow. So for her, we decided that her core piece of content would be videos, and that would be via Instagram lives. So she is now creating Instagram lives once a week, just short 5-10 minute videos, and downloading those and then uploading them to YouTube as another way to actually help your content go further.
That's cool. So you mentioned content archetypes. Does that
Yes.
mean we belong to a certain club that would suit the content we should be creating? Is that what
100,
it is?
100%. Yes. The club. I like that. I've never heard it described like that. I think I might use that, Grace.
Yeah, you can use it.
so, so there's different types of clubs you can go to. The first one is the precision planners. So these people are like me. I am one of these who absolutely live for schedules, for calendars, for to-do lists, for batching, for, all of those types of things that are really, really focused and into planning. The second type is the free spirits, which I mentioned. This client of mine is one. And these free spirits love to create content when they are called, when they feel in the moment, when they feel inspired. They're often very intuitive people, often creative people as well. But they don't so much like the lists and crossing things off lists. They'd rather just do things when they feel called to do it. The third type is the observers. So these people typically don't use content marketing proactively. A lot of their clients come to them via referrals. But when they see a strategy, someone else's strategy in place and working well, then they are more likely to take that on board and do that strategy as well. And then the last type are the collectors, my beautiful collectors, who are the shiny object chasers who who get distracted by all the things and will implement something, as a particular strategy or a particular tactic, stick with it for maybe a week or two, and then find something else to go ahead to. So they don't really stick with a strategy. So there's within those four types of content creator archetypes, we approach content very, very differently. And in particular, we approach planning very differently.
Mm. I wonder which one of those I am.
Well, I'll give you the link, Grace, so you can
I
go
want to
and
find
check it
out
out.
because I sound like I'm um, a little bit of the planner, a little bit of the free flowing, a little bit of the shiny object. Um, I guess because I don't fall into creating a strategy, I have my content buckets and
Mhm.
I know what content I want to create as far as the main strategy and the main subject matter. But as far as a schedule or a strategy, I haven't successfully worked with that. Can you talk to how to actually work to a strategy when sometimes you feel like just responding to what content is out there and just doing something as you feel? And
Mhm.
then sometimes planning when you need to just have content continually showing up so that you're consistent. So how do we sort of rein ourselves in and make a plan?
Okay.
Or do you do that
So,
for people?
yes. So when we think about planning, I want people to think about their strengths. So obviously the free spirits are going to go, no way. There is no way you are pinning me down to a plan. I will not plan under any circumstances. The
Mm-hmm.
precision planners are like, I'm all over that. Yes, hell yes, I'm in. I will actually do a plan. The observers will kind of sit back, look at the different types of planning systems out there, and then choose the one and then be all in. And the collectors will perhaps download a content plan, use it for a little while, and then go on to the next one and then go on to the next one. So, what I really encourage people to do is once you know your content creator archetype, think about then how you can bring planning into your life. So, I'm just going to take a step back for a second, Grace, and say that planning to me is the second step to consistent content. Okay. So if we take a step back from that, the first step is being prepared. Now, you mentioned content buckets, which is great. I really love that. But I encourage people to take a step away from buckets or pillars for a moment
Mm-hmm.
and think about all of the things. What are all the things that you could possibly share or talk about? And the reason that I do that is sometimes I feel as though if we are told that we have to have buckets or we have to have pillars, then that really restricts our thinking. It restricts what we are prepared to share. Because, like you said, you may be really inspired to create or share something, and then you go, oh, actually, it's not in one of my buckets, so I better not share it.
Mm.
So I encourage people in that first stage of being prepared to think about all the things that they could possibly talk about. And when I work with my clients and my members, I help them come up with a mind map of all of the things that they could possibly share and talk about. And then we use AI to amplify the amount of ideas that can come out of that. So that's the first step, prepare. And then it moves on to planning.
Okay.
So no matter what your archetype, your prepare stage is going to be pretty much the same. It'll just be different in terms of how you go about it. The free spirits might take their notebook outside and, you know, in the sunshine and on the grass, whereas the planners might be in their office and be focused, just as an example.
Mm-hmm.
So then we move on to planning, which is what your question was about. So the free spirits, as an example, will hate the idea of planning, but they are always open to what I call a high-level 90-day content plan. And I do this with my members once a quarter. It's such a simple and easy way of giving yourself the structure, but leaving yourself with extreme flexibility at the same time. I know that that sounds a bit like an oxymoron, but you can be structured and flexible at the same time.
Yeah, that would suit me.
Okay, great. So in this 90-day plan, Grace, what we're going to do for you is think about, first of all, what's my objective? What do I want my content to actually achieve for me this quarter? So sometimes it might be building your list.
Yeah, list building.
Sometimes it might, yep. So that might be your focus for a month or 90 days, or it might be, you might be focusing on a launch. You might be focusing on brand awareness, whatever it is. Have a focus, have an objective. The second step is to then think about, what am I selling this quarter? What am I focusing on selling? And I think that sometimes we forget about this piece. We think that, you know, content, we just keep putting content out there, but we forget to say, well, you can actually buy from me, and this is the thing that I'm focusing on.
And photographers in my community hate selling. They've told me this, yeah. So that's probably why they purposely forget, because they hate doing it.
Right.
But they love sharing their photos.
Well, and isn't that interesting? Oh my goodness, we can talk so much around that as well, but I'll just go back to the fact that that 90-day strategy then becomes, the third step becomes a theme, and then the fourth step is coming up with your core content ideas for that particular month, that particular quarter. So super simple way to begin to plan, no matter what your content creator archetype is.
Yep, I love that. I reckon we can learn a lot from just that little simple tool. So then what do you think photographers or creatives, because a lot of artists follow us as well, what do you think as far as content could be aside from their work? So photographers are posting their portfolio stuff, like their client work, whether they're family photographers, branding photographers, weddings, whatever industry they're in, or artists showing their paintings or the things that they're making. Aside from that, what sort of outside of that little box content stuff could they make?
Yeah, I'm going to say, please go back to that client journey. Go back to the connect, subscribe, nurture, and convert, because that is going to drive everything that you create. And if we're talking specifically social media, we start off with connect pieces. So that's, you know, could be an article about you. It could be a post about how you do things differently, what your unique approach to photography is. Not necessarily the type of photography, but what makes you different, what makes you stand out from everyone else. It might be a little piece about, if you're willing to share a little bit about your life, it might be something that you did on the weekend that you really love. So connect pieces. Then we move on to subscribe. So how are we bringing people into our world rather than just relying on social media, because social media is not a strategy within itself. We all know that we cannot rely on the algorithms to deliver our content to the right people at the right time. Instagram tries to, but but it doesn't happen. So it's not a strategy. So how are we widening the web to make sure that we have additional touch points with our beautiful ideal clients so that they can get to know us a little bit quicker? So that'll be a freebie or free resource of some description. I don't know whether you call it a lead magnet opt-in, that you can offer to bring people into your world. Or the subscribe piece might be, if you have a podcast, then come and, subscribe to my podcast. It might be come and join my Facebook group, whatever it is. So that's the subscribe piece of content. Then we have the nurture piece of content. So that may be around the photos, the images that you've taken. I would love to see a story to go with those images. And there's so many different ways that you can tell a story with the same image.
Help us out with that. Let's extend that, because photographers really struggle with what to write when it comes to their images, especially on social media or even in a blog. I've seen specifically in the domestic market where they're doing families and weddings, they're posting all the images there. They're saying the time, place, the who, what, where, when. But apart from that, they don't know what else to say. Even in a story, they don't know what stories to tell. So please inspire us with some tips.
Okay, awesome. Okay, well, I will give you two examples we'll use the family photographer and say they have either one image or a carousel of images from the same photo shoot. And so instead of talking about, this is where we were, this is the time of day, this is, all the things about it, the actual facts about it, let's take a step away from the things and think about the emotions and think about the stories that we can tell with that. So the way that I structure any piece of content, and, if you're going to walk away with anything from this episode today, I almost think that this little tip is going to be one of the best tips that you'll have. It's a 5-step process. So whether it is a Facebook Live I'm doing, an Instagram post, scripting my podcasts, whatever it is, I always do these 5 steps. The first is, what's the anchor? What's that one-liner that actually can pique the interest? So with my podcast, it'll be the title of my podcast. In an Instagram caption, it'll be the first line. So what's that one line that increases interest? That's the first step. The second step is, what's the context? What's the story? What's the introduction to this? How can I actually set the scene? And then, or even draw an analogy from some part of my life or past experience. That's the second step. The third step are, what are the 3 to 5 things that I want to share in relation to this title? So, writing a podcast or a blog, I'm going to think about, I have the heading. What are the 3 to 5 main points that I want to get across, and talk about those? The next thing is the call to action. What do I specifically want someone to do? And then the last step is a summary. Don't usually do this in social media posts, but obviously if you're doing a video or a blog, you would summarize. So you don't really need that on social. So those 5 steps were the anchor, the context, the 3 to 5 things that I want to share, the call to action, and then the summary. So if you're thinking about this one image or several images of a family, we could take 2 different perspectives of this. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of examples that I've prepared, actually.
Oh, good.
in relation to this. So this is using that photo. It's using those 5 steps.
Okay.
So one approach could be a process approach. So what were the steps that I actually went through to take this photo? And one could be an approach or a perspective as to, what are the challenges that my ideal client is actually facing right now, and how can I address those? So the first one around the process, your anchor could be, a family photo is more than the image that you see. Okay, so it's a one line. It's kind of like, oh, what else is it? It kind of piques your interest.
Yes.
And then the story and the context can be something like, last week, I spent an hour with this beautiful family to capture images for the grandparents who live overseas. So it's the why, it's the reason behind why they wanted these photos taken. was perfect conditions. The results were amazing, but there is so much that goes on behind one shot. So then we can move into the 4 points. I don't know if these are true or not because I'm not a photographer, but the first point might be behind this photo, there were 50 others where someone had their eyes closed, someone was distracted, and someone was pulling a weird face. Behind this photo, there was a photographer doing her best to distract the littlest one from going into a full meltdown. And behind this photo is the love and attention of someone who really cares. So they're your 3 points. And then your call to action would be, buy from me. If you'd love to capture your family in a stress-free photo shoot, then contact me. Yes. So that gives a view of the story behind the shot. But it also gives people an idea of the process as well. So that's one example.
And it brings them into that setting, actually, because as you were describing that, I imagined myself on that day of the shoot. So you did really well there.
Awesome. And then the second perspective that you can take is really honing in on what your ideal client is feeling at the moment in terms of what's challenging for them or what they actually desire in their life as well. So the anchor could be, are you in the photo or are you always taking the photo? So this is probably for the parent who is always taking the photo. Yeah. So the context for that's the second step is, how many times have you asked someone to take a photo of you with your children? I guarantee there's only a handful of photos that exist with you and your children, if any, and there's probably none of your entire family. So that's their problem, that's their challenge. So let's fix that. And then the 3 points can be, when we work together, you can guarantee that, and you might come up with 3 of your unique selling points, but it'll be a stress-free experience. I won't ask you to pose in awkward positions, and you'll create a lasting memory that will be treasured forever. So whatever those 3 things are, that are the outcome that they actually desire. And then the call to action is to book your photo shoot.
Yes, love it. Sold on those. They're great ideas.
So both of those really are using the same image, but we are not talking about the image itself. No. We're talking about the emotions, and we're talking about the feelings behind that, because that's what drives people to purchase.
Yes, and that's right. And we want to inspire and drive people to be part of the journey now and to purchase from us. And painting that picture of the experience helps them take that next step.
100%, because they can see themselves in that scenario.
And I feel like we could even use that same strategy or pathway. See, a lot of my photographers as well are commercial photographers, and you might not think traditionally that we could use that model to tell a story about an event we photographed or a branding shoot we did for a business, but I think you still can. I think it's still relevant.
Oh, 100%. I agree. I don't think it matters the type of photography at all, or even the type of business. Any creative can use that idea of focusing on the emotional side of things rather than this is what you get. I think that sometimes, especially with photography and packages, like you have very distinct packages, that we can get caught up in the describing of exactly the things that you get in that package. Whereas where we should switch that, and we should be thinking about, well, these are the things that they get, but what is the actual benefit of it? What's the benefit of them working with me? And it's far more than the things. It's how they will feel, what will be different in their life as a result of working with you. Yes. And I know that sometimes that's hard for especially creatives to grasp, that you provide this, you change someone's life, really. You change them. You help them, feel something different, be something different, do something different in their life as a result of photographing them. So I'd love for your listeners to lean into that. Lean into, oh my goodness, you are just such an amazing human being that provides such an amazing service to someone, and you do change their life, and really think about that.
Yes. And what do you help them be, do, and have, as you often say on your podcast? So, yeah, I really love that. And I think if we remember that in our copy on our website, in our captioning, in our social media, and all the other little touch points, that can just be a little prompt for us to, start writing more engaging content.
Yes, most definitely. Think about the be, do, and have.
Yeah, be, do, and have. What about for people who feel like their strength is not in words,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a blog and they have social media, but yeah, they need a little help with writing? Because to be fair, probably a few years ago, 10 years ago or so, if I was told to start a blog, I would just block myself and say, nah, writing is not my strength. So I'm going to avoid that at all costs. But
Mm.
down the track, I just learned how to write. And I learned that actually I can be a good writer and a good storyteller. But if somebody is sort of at that point where they don't feel like writing is their strength, but they're still trying to elevate their content strategy, what advice would you give them there?
I'd say go back to that 5-step strategy I just gave you. When you write a blog, it doesn't need to be this massive long article. I think that people have in their heads that it has to be 1,000 words. It has to be 1,500 words. When I was writing blogs, I was at the 500, 600 word mark, right? So when
Okay.
you think about that, that is super, super easy to do. Because if you think about those 5 steps, you've come up with your headline.
Mm-hmm.
One paragraph is the introduction, the story, the context.
Yes.
We have those 3 to 5 points, which is a paragraph in itself of about 100 words. We have a call to action and a conclusion, which is about 100 words. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness, there you go. You've got your 500-word blog there and then. And all you're doing is writing one paragraph on each of those 3 to 5 things that you want to share. So I really encourage people, if you do have a block in terms of writing, first of all, don't overthink it. Second of all, lean into the fact that we are all human and we love to see the human side of things. So it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yes.
And the third thing is use those 5 steps and you'll be writing 500-word blogs in absolute no time.
So true. And also, it doesn't have to be a white paper or an article for, Department of Defense. It can be written in your voice. It can be written casually in casual language, and it can be written conversationally. That's what I didn't understand in the beginning. And it can sound like you. And the more it does sound like you, the more people are actually going to read it.
100% agree with that. And, just going on from your point about it doesn't have to be a white paper. So it doesn't have to be this really structured, informative piece of content. It can be your approach to something. Or as I have seen with a couple of photographers in my world as well, they use case studies or stories about the people that they're taking photos of and using that as their blog and then reimagining that blog into their social media.
So, what does a case study look like in that situation that you've seen?
Yeah, so it's a story about the person. It might be a story about if we're talking about a business sense. So
Mm-hmm.
as an example, if someone took photos of myself, they might talk about, who I am, what I do, why I came to them in the first place, the results that I got, how I felt during the process, how I felt afterwards.
Mm.
And it gives the photographer the opportunity to actually showcase their images of that person as well. So it kind of serves as a gallery as well. So yeah, it doesn't have to be an informative, factual piece of writing.
And I love that, because then with that post, then they can share it. Like, that particular business owner can share it in their their own way. Um, and case studies also, I guess, would help your potential clients see themselves in that situation. Because if you're telling a case study, I did a shoot this week actually for a cosmetic sort of brand. And, even me mentioning in the case study how nervous the owner of the business was about the brand shoot with all her team. And as soon as I said to her, this is not the only shoot we're going to do for the rest of your life, and it all revolves around this next 3 hours, relax, we can come back again, we can do more, we're building on this this image library. This is just the first of many. And then that subsided her nerves about making everything perfect.
And what a perfect story to tell.
Yes, I'm gonna share that now that you've inspired me to do a case study. I forget about case studies. I think that's such a good strategy. And then I guess case studies or any other stories like that can then transition and be repurposed into email marketing. So let's talk about email marketing. What do you know about that?
Okay. So first of all, I'm going to go back to the 4 Ps in the consistent content framework. So we spoke about being prepared. We spoke about having a plan. We've just spoken about producing the content, which is the third step. So actually getting in there and writing the blog or recording the video or the podcast. The last step is process. And this is where you take your core piece of content and turn it into so many other different pieces of content. One of those pieces of content that you can turn it into is an email. So, as an example, I have a weekly podcast. I have 2 emails that go out every week, only because I just don't want people to think that they have to do 2 emails a week. Do 1 email a month, whatever it takes, whatever is in your time, energy, and resources available to you. I do too, because I'm really good at it and I have my processes in place and it's really easy. So one of the emails that goes out is about my podcast, but it's not necessarily this is a podcast with Grace Costa and you should go and listen to it. It might be about how we connected, and it might give a bit of background in terms of what we spoke about, but there will be a story involved in it. So it's a bit of like an introduction to actually going and listening to the podcast. At the same time, it then drives people back to my podcast to listen to my podcast. So we're constantly going to and fro and creating those various touch points amongst all the places that we turn up with our content. Now, email marketing, like I said, is just the most amazing way to connect with your audience, because they have told you, by giving you their email address, they have said to you, I love what you do. I want to hear more from you. So please don't leave them hanging.
Yes.
That
would be rude.
Please. It would be extremely rude. That's exactly right. Like, imagine if I don't know, you met someone new at a networking function and you swapped phone numbers and you never actually contacted them ever again. Like, that's just rude. Yeah. So let's not be rude to our subscribers and make sure that we do, stay in touch with them.
Yeah, because they want to hear from us. We have information to share with them, things to inspire them with, and it comes again back to community, connection. People actually want to feel connected in this world where it's just full of so much other stuff. At least your email can connect with somebody for 2 minutes once a month or once a fortnight and remind people who you are. Stay top of mind. I'm all for email marketing. I actually love it.
I love hearing that, Grace. That's amazing. I think it's such an amazing way, like you said, to stay in contact with people, because especially in the creative space, people are not always ready right there and right then to work with you. It may actually take time. So if you can be emailing them and speaking to them and connecting with them in that way, because we know that we can't rely on social media and the algorithms to deliver every piece of content to our ideal client. If we can make sure that we, staying in touch when they are ready, then you're going to be the first person that they come to.
Or they're going to share that email with somebody in their network. If you were sharing something valuable that they think somebody else would like to benefit from, they might share it on. And also, I feel like social media, when you're on social media as a consumer, like you're let's just say attending social media on the phone, you're not necessarily absorbing the information properly, because there's so much going on and you're scrolling quite fast and you're reading fast and you're only absorbing it like probably 2% of what you actually could be doing. And so when it becomes emails, the content is longer. You have different sort of focus point because it's on your computer. You're seeing it in bigger text form. a bigger format. So therefore, you're more likely to absorb the information. And for a client, that's a better way to engage with them because it's in a different way.
Agree totally.
Thanks. See, I told you we're going to nerd out on all this stuff. I love talking about content and marketing and all these strategies. All right. So, what else do people need to know about content marketing that we haven't covered? That is anything really important that we didn't mention?
Yes, 100% there is one thing, and it's, the crux of my message and everything that I talk about, and that is to think about the you, to think
Ooh,
about the you in the content.
okay.
When we are taught content and content marketing, we are taught from an ideal client-centric point of view. So we're always told you have to know your ideal client, you have to know this about them, you have to know that about them. And yes, you do, to be able to create content that speaks to them. But we need to really also focus on ourselves. So what do we love to create, which we've already spoken about?
Mm-hmm.
What is in line with our strengths, and what gives us joy and makes it easy for us to be able to connect and share with our ideal client as well. Because when we don't have the you part in our content, which basically comes back to your values and your core beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
don't have that in our content, then we're really doing the job for our competitors. So we're speaking to our ideal client. We're saying, we're calling them out. We're saying, this is for you. And they're saying, yes, yes, this is for me. That's who I am. And that's what I want in my life.
Mm-hmm.
We are speaking to the what. So we're speaking to those transformations, what they can be, do, and have as a result of working with us. And they're going, yes, that's what I want to be, do, and have. But if we're not sharing the you part of us in our content, then they don't know that you're the right person to deliver that. So what you're saying to them is, this is you, you have this problem, you can be, do, and have this, but, you can work with anyone to do that, not just
Uh-huh.
me. So that's why I really encourage people to think about those things in terms of your values and your core beliefs, and they would really drive your message and bring in those people to your world that you really love to work with.
So does that mean being more of yourself, like as far as your personality and your values? Like, am I on the right track with that?
Yeah, so and this is a really tough one as well, because when I say to people, you need to bring more you to your content, they, oh my goodness, take a deep, sharp breath in, because it's like, well, I don't want to share things about my life. And you know what? That's fine. That is so fine. You do not have to share anything about your life if you don't want to, but they need to know who you are as a person. So
Mm-hmm.
whether that is your personality, so, perhaps you like silly dad jokes, I don't know, and you like to share those, I really encourage people to do that. But at the core, at the absolute minimum, I would love to see people sharing their values and sharing their core beliefs. When you're thinking about your core beliefs, I think that can be a little bit, a big concept and something difficult to grasp. But all you need to do is think about, what do you believe to be true for your ideal client, for your industry, or the world in general? Super simple. Just answer that question, or answer the flip side to that. Often if we put it in the negative, it's easier for us to answer. What drives you crazy
Oh,
about what
yes.
your ideal client is doing, or what other people do in your industry or the world in general? So if you can answer either of those questions and get to the core of your core beliefs, then that's what you need to share. That's the basis of your message.
Okay, that's interesting. I think yeah, we can learn from that and try and pull out. I think we could even sort of nut that out for ourselves by maybe pen and paper and
100%.
just, yeah, what are my values? What are my core beliefs? What am I against? What am I for? What are my beliefs about the industry or about my niche? Or yeah, that could be a pen and paper kind of activity.
Definitely. And if you can come up with 3 or 4, then that's absolutely brilliant. So my 4 are around, the first one is, content has the power to connect us all. It's up to you how to use it. So that's my first one. The second one is, when you move from a transactional numbers-based perspective of content marketing to one that's built on relationships and humans, then you experience so much business and personal growth.
Mm.
The The third one is you don't have to do hashtag all the things. When you take into consideration your time, energy, and resources, then life flows so much easier. And the last one is around community. So we make a greater impact when we come together. So those four things, everything that you read of mine, anytime you hear me speak, any training that I give, there will be those messages woven in it. And I think that people think that a message is like one sentence that they put up on their website and then that's it, you know.
Yeah.
But a message is like, what really drives you? What are you so passionate about that, you know, or what makes you so sad if you see it happen? And that will get you to your core beliefs, which is the basis of your message.
That sparked something in me straight away, Mel. Ah, yes. I know where I'm going with this now. So that's helped me a lot, just you explaining your version of it. And we can humanize our messaging and our content because we can understand those things and, yeah, speak to actual person. We're not just like making things so dry and strict. We're bringing some human element into it as well.
Definitely. And, you know, as per my core belief, when we do that, then we experience so much more business and personal growth. You know, personal growth in terms of you make genuine connections with people, genuine relationships that evolve into something big and beautiful, and business because you will see the sales because you're making those connections and relationships as well.
Yes, perfect. I love that. Well, that's a good place for us to round up this conversation. How can people be part of your Facebook group and your membership and all the things? And you've got a book as well. So please tell us all the things and how we can stay connected with you, Mel.
I do have a book, Grace. Yes, I have a book baby that I birthed into the world earlier this year. It's called
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a long labor. The Power of Content, it's called. It's really about ditching the shoulds and the noise around content marketing and really embracing your strengths to make content creation easy. A lot of what we spoke about today. So it's based on the content effect framework. You'll have to read it to find out what that is. You can also join my membership, The Content Effect, and I help service-based businesses work with their strengths and actually implement and create consistent content to be more visible. You can work with me one-on-one and also subscribe to the Powerful Content podcast where I share like strategic content ideas that are really aligned with your purpose and your passion. And Grace is on episode 131.
Yes, make sure you go listen, everybody. That was fun, our chat. Yeah, that's wonderful, Mel. So many things for people to get involved in and follow you on. I've been a listener of your podcast probably since last year, I think. My friend Sarah told me about it. And I love the tips that you share as well. So I really appreciate you being on the podcast today. The content and information you shared so valuable to the photographers in my network. And I know it's brand new stuff they wouldn't have heard before. So that's gold.
Fabulous. So lovely to hear. Thank you so much for having me, Grace. It's been such an amazing conversation and such an honor and privilege to be here with you.
Thank you, Mel. That's it for today's episode. If you found it valuable, I invite you to leave a review so more people can find this podcast, or simply subscribe to be notified when each new episode drops. Until next time, see you later.